All right. Well, good evening, everyone. It is so good to see. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay, awesome. I have muted everybody, and if you want to talk, we'll talk more about that as we get started. But I wanted to welcome you guys. My name is Chanel Brandon, and I'm the Secretary of Healthy Living with a Vision Foundation. And you have just joined us for our second annual Healthy Living with a Vision 28-day Kickstart to Plant-Based Eating. So give yourselves a hand. I see some familiar faces out there. I see my family, Brian. I haven't seen you in forever. It's so good to see you. And my other friends and family and all of those that have joined. We are so happy that you have joined us on today. You are in for a treat. As we introduce, I just wanted to give a disclaimer to you guys and let you know that all of this is for personal use. It's not for any medical advice. So we wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. And you're going to be in for some great topics and discussion over the next 4 weeks. This discussion is going to basically kick off today, and it's going to be every Tuesday for the next 4 Tuesdays, which will be all the way until February the 6th of 2024, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So please, please put it on your calendars, because I know all of you guys want to start 2024 off looking good, eating right, and just living this wonderful, fantabulous life. Am I correct, everyone? Say yes.
Yes.
I
Oh,
love it. I
yes.
love it. I hear it. I see it. I love it. So mark your calendars, because we're getting ready to transform our lives, our minds, our bodies, and our spirits. We have some awesome speakers that are going to be getting on. And on today, you get to hear from some of us, our very own. You get to hear from Dr. Johnson, who is the CEO of Healthy Living with a Vision, and then our very own Dr. James Thompson, who is an immunologist and an allergist. I'm going to give you more of their bios a little bit later, but I wanted to give you all a few house rules, okay? So the speaker's going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes each week. And then we're going to allow for you guys to have questions and answers. All right. You can put it in the chat. You can wait until the end and discuss it if you like. Let me admit some of these other people. If people are just coming in, let me let them in. And like I said, the speaker will talk for 10 to 15 minutes. If you all have any comments or concerns, please feel free to put it in the chat or save it for later on in the evening, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started and tell you about Dr. Ansel Johnson. Dr. Ansel Johnson is the founder and the owner of Vision Salon Eye Care and Associates in Blue Island. He received his bachelor's in biology from Illinois Wesleyan University and his doctorate degree from the New England College of Optometry in Boston. He completed a postgraduate certificate from the Optometry Executive Program at the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. He currently is an adjunct professor at 4 optometry school programs, and his office serves as an externship site for 5 programs. He also serves on a staff at Advocate Trinity Hospital in Chicago. And he's also the CEO and the president of Healthy Living with a Vision. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Johnson. There you go, Dr. Johnson.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Chanel. I'm going to just be brief because I really want the brunt of this to go to Dr. James Thompson, who is our medical director. But first of all, a little bit of history on Healthy Living with the Vision Foundation. We founded that, and our mission statement is to eliminate healthcare disparities in historically underserved communities, and which really means a lot of times communities of color and even rural communities. So we initially started with the idea of providing diabetes education because that is so rampant in our community. And then COVID hit. We formed on Juneteenth, actually 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. And so we had to pivot. And with the leadership of Dr. Thompson, we pivoted from diabetes education to COVID. We were actually one of the first organizations in January of 2020 to have a series of town hall meetings on the different stages of COVID, even before there were vaccines. And the big question was, where can I get tested? And now we're able to kind of pivot back to our roots and deal with nutrition and health. So throughout the presentation, I want you all to consider getting on our website, healthylivingwithavision.org, and consider donating. I don't care what amount it is, so that we can expand this program. This is virtual, but we plan in the future to do in-person cooking demonstrations, in-person physical activity demonstrations, and other things, so that in person in smaller groups, we can show people how to live their best life to prevent healthcare problems. And if you have or living with a chronic healthcare disease, how to improve the quality of your life. And with that on, I'm going to turn that back over to Ms. Brandon.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to tell you a little bit about our panelist and our medical director for Healthy Living with a Vision, Dr. James Thompson. We'll give you a little bit about his bio. Dr. Thompson graduated from Washington University School of Medicine and completed his residency program at the University of Illinois Hospital and Clinics. He served as the chief resident of internal medicine at the University of Illinois Hospital. He is board certified by the American Board of Internal Medicine. Dr. Thompson is also a holistic nutritional health coach certified by the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. He is incorporating holistic nutrition concepts into the treatment of asthma and other allergic diseases as means of achieving better health. He also is the senior partner and vice president of the Associated Allergists and Asthma Specialists, LTD, a group practice he has worked in for 33 years. Turning it over to our very own Dr. James Thompson.
Thank you, Chanel. I'll need to be made host. I think I can't share my screen just yet, so I'll give a minute for you to do that. Let me see.
Okay. Dr. Johnson, you give him yours because I'm still letting
Sure,
people.
not a problem.
Okay.
Good to see everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. I see some guys I communicate with every day on a text. I won't mention y'all names, but y'all know who you are. Some great guys. And I see a lot of family and friends. I'm really glad you all made it. Happy New Year to everyone. Let me see if I can get this screen up yet. Let's see if I got the privileges. Not yet.
Hold on.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out where to look at that. Just bear with me.
Under participants, hit that participants, and then it'll come up to the side there to hover over my name.
Gotcha.
We don't have our engineers this time, folks. We've had a lot of these town halls before, and we have some engineers usually helping us, but kind of going out on our own limb, and so bear with us.
Let's see, James Thompson. I see you here.
There's so many people on there, like 75 people on there.
Yes, it is. It's amazing and it's a blessing.
Yeah, we are.
I made him the host. You just have to let people in, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
All right, let's see if we can get this. Okay, now we're cooking. All right, get this screen share up with sound and get it to the presentation. Okay. See if I can advance. Yes, I can. Okay, we're ready to go, folks. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the warm introduction, Chanel. I'm so excited to be in this digital space with all of you tonight. Despite our diverse backgrounds, I'm certain we all share some common goals: to live longer, to live healthier, and experience fulfilling lives. Sadly, the standard American diet often hinders these goals, but not to worry, that is where we come in. At Healthy Living with a Vision Foundation, our mission is to be your guide on this journey to wellness. We are here to help you make smarter food choices, to understand the benefits of certain dietary omissions, and to embrace lifestyle changes for improved health. Tonight, I will explore 3 key areas. First, I want to decode some labels such as vegan, whole food, plant-based, vegetarian, and omnivore. Understanding these terms helps you to understand the boundaries of various diets and where ethical beliefs come in. Second, I'll discuss the plant-based advantage, why eat more plants, and how to transition to eating more plant-based food. Finally, I want to introduce you to the Fearless approach. Fearless is an acronym for 8 important pillars of good health. Now let's dive into the first objective, understanding the terminology. Vegan, what does that mean? Veganism is more than just a diet, folks. It's a lifestyle, transcending dietary choices. It is a commitment to abstaining from animal products of all forms, not only food, but clothing and even cosmetics. While some vegans may consume highly processed plant-based junk food, such as potato chips, Coca-Cola, or Oreo cookies, the healthier vegans eat whole food plant-based, such as this. But understand the essence of veganism lies in the ethical stance against animal exploitation and cruelty. It is important to recognize that veganism is diverse and one's approach to it can vary greatly. But the bottom line about vegans is that they avoid contributing to the slaughter, abuse, and exploitation of animals. So next, whole food plant-based. People who follow a whole food plant-based eating method focus on consuming minimally processed plants. That's what the whole means, WH, whole means. They tend to avoid many foods that come in boxes, bags, bottles, and cans, especially when they require a paragraph of words to list the ingredients. There are 4 major categories of whole foods that are plant-based. These include fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, or beans. But they also include herbs and spices, nuts, seeds, and mushrooms. It has now been revealed that this dietary approach is backed by substantial support from extensive observational studies and some clinical trials aimed at improving both lifespan and health span. Health span refers to the period of life you live free of medications, long list of medications and medical procedures and numerous doctor visits to specialists like me. Next, and this is a plate that demonstrates whole food. Next, let's talk about vegetarians. Vegetarians primarily eat plants, but are categorized into 2 major subgroups. Lacto-ovo vegetarians consume eggs and dairy products, for example, milk, cheese, yogurt, and sour cream. Pesco-vegetarians consume plants, but in addition, fish. Now, there can be a lot of overlap between these groups, and it can get confusing. But based on some studies out of Loma Linda, California, one of them is called the Adventist 1 and 2 study, these types of diets lower the risks of cardiac disease and other major diseases, vegetarian diets. They relative to the standard American diet. The standard American diet, or some refer to as SAD diet, helps people get to hospitals, clinics, and dialysis center, and they get busier and they are more productive. So let's get to omnivores. They basically eat everything. The omni means all. So they eat red meat, white meat, fish, poultry, dairy, as well as some plants. This diet is very much aligned or close to the standard American diet. How about the standard American diet? Well, as you can see from this diagram here, the majority of food is processed. That blue wedge there, 55% of the standard American diet is loaded with salt, oil, and sugar. That's where they hang out. The SOS foods, as we call it, but you'll hear more about from Dr. Miller in a follow-up Tuesday session. Meat, as you see, is the next largest wedge. And look how small the wedge for veggies is. and the wedge for whole grains. That's part of our problem, people. So why eat whole food plant-based? Plant-based diets have been linked to lower risks of heart disease. It's also been linked to lower risks of chronic kidney disease, diabetes, hypertension. There are numerous diseases that are risks that are lowered by eating plant-based, including experiencing less severe COVID-19. The benefits of eating plant-based is a topic endorsed by several renowned nutrition experts, not the least of which are a number of cardiologists, like Dr. Kim Williams, who used to be head of the Division of Cardiology at Rush Medical Center in Chicago, but moved to Kentucky to become University of Louisville's head of the Department of Medicine. He is also the past chairman of the American College of Cardiology. He is a very emphatic plant-based eater who promotes this in his office and people that work with him because he knows that reduces the risk for the number one killer of people in this country and around the world, heart-related diseases. Also, there's Dr. Columbus Batista, who is chairman of the chief of cardiology in Southern California at a couple of the Kaiser clinics. He also strongly advocates that we eat plant-based for heart and overall health. There's also Dr. Baxter Montgomery, who's located in Houston. He founded the Montgomery Heart and Wellness Centers, and he strongly advocates plant-based eating. He, in fact, has his own restaurant that is tied in with his clinic. You can go from his clinic to his plant-based restaurant. That's how much he emphasizes eating plant-based for heart health. And then we have Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and I wish I had enough time to tell you more about his incredible research and success in reversing coronary artery disease blockage in several patients that were considered inoperable. They weren't even considered eligible for bypass surgery, but he turned them around with diet and lifestyle changes. For those in Chicago, we should be familiar with Dr. Terry Mason, former Commissioner of Health and COO of Cook County's Public Health Systems, famously quoted as saying, "Let your kitchen be your pharmacy and your food pantry your medicine cabinet." His advocacy for plant-based nutrition resonates with many Chicagoans. Highlighting the critical importance of diet is also Dr. Michael Greger. I don't have a slide on him, but he published a book called How Not to Die. And he wonderfully shows how eating plant-based lowers the risk for the top 15 diseases that kill people in this country. But then we also have Dr. Will Bolsowitz. He's a plant-based gastroenterologist who has published a couple of best-selling books, the Fiber Fueled and the Fiber Fueled Cookbook, both of which I have. They are wonderful books. And he emphasizes the interconnectedness of the gut microbiome with our immune, cardiovascular system, nervous system, and endocrine system. This brings us to a key point, our diet's role in gut health. Unlike animal-based products, plant-based foods are rich in fiber and micronutrients that improve gut health. So where do you start? Well, you start by getting a journal and using your journal to document this journey. To start the day, list the things you're grateful for. I know it sounds corny, but believe me, it makes a difference. List the things you're grateful for. Second, and third and fourth and fifth, this is to make a record of what you learn, your intentions, your goals, and your assignments. Speaking of which, this week, without making sweeping changes, I'd like you to make a list of the number of plant foods that you eat over the course of the day. I want you to have an average daily intake of plant foods, servings of plants. So that's what I want you to do this week. We want to determine your daily average of plant consumption. For most people in America, folks, it's 3 or less. Also, I want you to make a list of the plant-based foods that you like. Foods you would find in the produce or dried goods sections. List about 10 to 15 of them. And then this weekend, go get them if it's not too cold. Now, my goals for you will have been met if you are consuming 2 to 3 times the number of daily servings of plants by the last Tuesday of this town hall series. Now, examples of servings are a medium-sized banana, an apple, a half cup of cooked beans, a half cup of greens. We don't have to be exact with this. Between now and next Tuesday, I want you to watch one or more of the following videos. What the Health, or the Game Changers for young, very highly active people in sports. You love the Game Changers. Live to be 100, a story about blue zones. Those are all on Netflix. Now, if you don't have Netflix, no worries. As an alternative, get on YouTube. Hopefully you get on YouTube and look at the video on Forks Over Knives, this Forks Over Knives video, and watch 2 videos from Chuck Carroll's Exam Room. That's also on YouTube. That's from pcrm.org. But if you just go into the YouTube search, put in the Exam Room and Chuck Carroll, you'll find hundreds of videos about health, and just pick a couple and watch them. Or watch 1 or 2 presentations from Dr. Michael Greger on nutritionfacts.org, also on YouTube. Folks, if you follow through with these assignments, you will find them very informative, and they will prompt more questions for the next sessions. So try your best to get through some of them. It won't take a lot of your time, and you have a week. All right, I had posted, this slide dropped out, but I had posted an example of my 15 foods. And what I'll do is I'll put them on my website, which is fearlessmd21.com, just to give you an example. Everyone has their own way of doing things, but I'd like everyone to make sure they make that list. You will find a recap of this presentation and assignments on my website, fearlessmd21.com, within the next couple of days. And the full video of this presentation will be on our foundation website, Healthy Living with a Vision Foundation, by the weekend. All right, let's get to the fearless approach. The F is for food. Of course, plant-based is the way to go. The E is for exercise. We need to strive to get in 120 to 150 minutes of exercise weekly. You can divide it up any way you want. If you've not been exercising, you need to talk with your doctor first to make sure all the boxes are checked regarding your heart health, especially if you're middle-aged or older. It is important to exercise routinely, and Dr. Priya will share more detailed information on exercise in her presentation in a couple of weeks. The A in Fearless is for avoiding toxins, not just alcohol and tobacco, but also the thousands of food chemical toxins in processed foods, many of which are categorized as GRAS, generally regarded as safe, which really means they have not been specifically studied for safety. The R in Fearless is for restorative sleep. We all need to get about 7 or more hours of quality sleep. I still struggle with that. Dr. Priya will also be presenting that topic in a couple of weeks. She is a pulmonary and critical care specialist. The L is for lessening stress. It may mean meditation for some, for others it may mean yoga, or maybe just various breathing exercises. The second E in Fearless is for engaging your mind, which is more important for people around my age, in the mid-60s and beyond, because as we get to and beyond retirement, we don't want to let our brains get lazy. That invites Alzheimer's and other dementias. We want to continue to challenge our brain with complex tasks, such as learning a new instrument or a language, or engaging in community projects where different parts of our brain coordinate together. For example, the speech area of our brains, or decision-making, or motor movement, or visual or audio centers. The next to the last S is for social energy. I bet you didn't know that when you collaborate with others for the common good, there are certain hormones that increase in our body that are beneficial to our health. For example, oxytocin. When you give somebody a hug, oxytocin levels go up. Of course, since the pandemic, that's been a little difficult. And lastly, but not least, spiritual connectivity. It may be related to your religion, or maybe not. It may be related to yoga, but something existential that grounds you, that is bigger than you. I go into much more detail about this and each pillar on my website, fearlessmd21.com, in the blog section. So I've reached the end of my imposed time limit. And so it's time to open up for questions. I'll give you 30 seconds to read this slide. And this will be the end of my presentation. I thank you for your time. I will spend at least the next 30 minutes addressing any questions you may have. All right, I'm going to stop the screen share and hand the baton back to our moderator.
All right. As we're doing that, thank you, Dr. Thompson. We really appreciate that. And I know you guys got some really, really good information and are getting engulfed in what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. So this is going to be the time where we have our question and answer session. I did get some comments in our chat box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let you, Dr. Thompson, if anybody's interested in raising any questions, raise your hand and I'll call upon you, and then we'll go to the chat box. But if you put something in the chat box, we will respond to that, okay? So I'm looking around here. Does anybody have any hands up here? Okay.
Yeah, there's a Jana Shaw.
All right, so Jana, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you.
Hello. Hello, Dr. Thompson. This was a great presentation. I have a quick question. I posted in the chat. Is fake meat also classified as plant-based food, or that should be avoided in this holistic approach?
Well, thank you for your question, Jana. I'm off mute. Okay. Yeah, well, I guess we want to define fake meat, first of all, because not all of it is the same. But if we're talking about, say, like Impossible Burgers or Beyond, are you referring to that kind of meat? Beyond Burgers, Impossible Burgers, things like that, or something else?
Yeah, those kind of.
Okay. All right. So we consider those as transition meats. So they certainly don't have any animal products in them. One of them is made from pea protein and the other from soy. But the drawbacks to them as a food that you eat long term is that they have a lot of sodium and they still have a lot of saturated fat. That's what kind of makes them taste like the real stuff. They don't have animal products in them, but they do have sodium and fat and some other processed chemicals in them. In one of them, I think it's the Impossible Burger, they have something to make the meat looks like it bleeds. They have this globin type of a pseudoglobin made from protein to make it look reddish. And I don't know how safe that is, but I haven't heard anything bad about it, but I just don't know. So I think these highly processed soy and other plants are okay for short term, maybe for you really want to have that kind of texture still and look, but don't settle on it. The thing about whole food is that it's minimally processed. So it looks more like it did when it came out of the ground. And these highly processed foods don't, and they usually involve a lot of chemicals and preservatives. All right.
All right. Thank you. All right, Rita, I'm asking you to unmute. Okay. All right. I'm trying to get Rita to unmute. I'm gonna ask get Kimberly, Dr. Miller to unmute.
I just is it okay if I go before Rita? Okay.
Yes,
she's
because
still muted. I just wanted to add about the quote unquote fake meat. You can also less fake meat, but some restaurants do make veggie burgers. So whole food plant-based, or you'll see them say plant-based burgers that are just like you would make in your kitchen. So you just need to be aware of if they're processed or if they're making truly veggie burger, whole food in the back kitchen. And those are healthier than the Impossible Burger brand.
That's true. If they're black bean burgers or, more the veggie type burgers, you're on much more stable ground. They still load them up with sodium, and sometimes there's some oil added on, and watch the condiments. But yeah, they're much better as far as not being over processed and having so many chemicals.
Okay. All right. And now we have Willie Brown. I've unmuted you.
Thank you. Dr. Thompson, thank you for your presentation. Our question has to do with the phrase transition meat. How long would you anticipate the transition from your old ways to this new way to last in terms of it being a healthy time frame for that transition?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's going to be short for some people, longer for others, depending on their level of passion and motivation and discipline. But I think it should be as short as possible. The thing is, there are times when you may be eating out, and I'll tell you, the less times you eat out, the healthier you'll be. But there are times we can't avoid it, right? You'll be eating out, and that might be what is the least evil for you to get, an Impossible Burger or Beyond Burger or one of these fake meats. And so when you compare it to the real thing, then you're a little bit more of ahead. And let's face it, it's not an exact science. If you eat something that's not so healthy occasionally, then it's not going to tear down all these days and meals that you've had that are healthy. So we never want to let, there's a term, progression over perfection, because we don't want to be anxious and have anxiety over this. On the other hand, we want to move the needle, as our chief, Dr. J, has said before, so that we're making progress over perfection. So that answers your question. It may differ for people, but you don't want to be 6 months, 12 months, and you're just eating highly processed meat.
And my final question is, we live in Michigan, and so I know in the Chicago area, you guys probably have a lot more variety of restaurants that have plant-based options on the menu. When we come visit Chicago, can you give us the names of maybe one or two great restaurants that serve plant-based meals?
Yeah, I know on 75th, is it Soul
Vegetarian.
Okay, Soul Vegetarian, yeah. That's a pretty good place. And there used to be Karen's. She just closed down here. Someone else maybe some people can put some of them in the chat. But I would say beware, folks, that just because it's vegan doesn't mean it's healthy. I've found that at a lot of vegan restaurants, yes, I trust that it's all plant-based, but they tend to use a lot of oil. And oil is pure fat, folks. Even if it's olive oil, it's pure fat. But they often tend to use, so it's creamier and tastes like what you've been used to. They use coconut oil or palm oil. That's more than 80% saturated fat. That increases your cholesterol risk, your heart risk. So you don't want to eat too often. But you're saying when you visit, you're talking about that occasional. And yeah, go, I think fine, you'll do great when you just occasionally eat these foods. But at the vegan restaurants, they want to please you. They want you to come back. So there's going to be a lot of salt, oil, and sugar added to the food, even though it's vegetable based. So make it occasional.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Roberta, you're up next.
Yeah, I had a question in regard to, I've been seeing a lot of the riced things. So you have a lot of the cauliflower that's riced and this, and it's making into, pizza crust and all these different things. How good is it being riced or just having it regular?
Well, if regular is that highly refined white flour, that's not good, because that's almost like sugar, and it gives you that insulin spike that we don't want, that it can create a situation with type 2 diabetes, increase your cancer risk, have some pressure on your blood vessels. So when you compare the two, if you're doing rice-based or cauliflower-based crust, that would be healthier. And I like pizza. Pizza is, they say, America's food, right? But There's a place out here called Blaze Pizza off Harlem, and you make your own custom pizza, and you can use gluten-free, you can do you know, vegan crust, and you can have some of the things you're used to by making these substitutions, loaded up with all the kind of veggies and stuff, not the sausage, pepperoni, stuff like that, but you know, the healthy stuff. And so we can have our healthy pizza and eat it too. So,
So,
I think-
but in terms of the like the rice veggie compared to just having regular cauliflower made regularly opposed to it being rice, is the ricing of it changing any of the health value of the cauliflower, say for instance?
You know, it depends. I mean, both of those are plant-based. If it's white rice, then you're getting empty, what we call empty calories, meaning they've polished off the bran, they've polished off the nutrients, and you got something that can still give you an insulin spike. So if they're taking white rice and they're making a mash out of it and making crust, that's probably not much healthier than the flour. So the cauliflower, I think, would be better. Now, if it's brown rice, that's different because it has bran and fiber in it. And so it slows down the absorption of the carbohydrate and you get some more nutrients. So it really differs whether it's white rice, brown rice, but probably you do better with the cauliflower.
But I'm just saying in terms of cauliflower versus the rice cauliflower versus regular cauliflower. I mean,
well, you're talking about going from less processed to more processed. There's 4 degrees of processing. You take an apple, you slice it, that's processing right there. Now, granted, you haven't lost much with a sliced apple, but then when you take it in to make an applesauce out of it, then you're really stepping back 2 steps because usually they put high fructose corn syrup in it and all kinds of preservatives and things like that. And then if you make apple pie, then you're really doing poorly. So there are different degrees. So if you rice the cauliflower, that's of course not as healthy as eating whole cauliflower. On the other hand, again, we don't want the perfection. We don't want to balance out having perfection outweighing progress. And so you're making progress if you're not doing that white flour and you're doing the riced cauliflower. It's just a little more processed, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Roberta. All right, Diane.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for your presentation. I am wondering if you or either of your other colleagues that will be presenting over the next 4 sessions going to address the issue of the challenge of eating someplace other than home, like at social events or, well, you can choose some restaurants. I have a friend that has been a vegan for 25 or 30 years, but he takes his food with him everywhere he goes, no matter what the event is. So that's my question.
Yeah, thanks. And you've seen what I've done sometimes in these social settings,
Right.
and it didn't work out so well the last one when they didn't have enough vegan plates. But you know, I wasn't bad off because I always prepare for this. I always eat before I go to these things. I always assume the worst, that okay, they're probably not going to have much for me to eat. So I don't go to these events starving, number one. Now that's another option. Take your food with you, you know, so you know, if that's your ilk, you know, certainly taking some healthy food with you might work too. I used to have breakfast, I used to smuggle in my whole wheat toast and my slices of bananas, stuff like that, because they overcharge for bananas. But you know, there are ways you can deal with this. But your question was, are we going to address some of these things? And the answer is yes. Dr. Gupta, next week, next Tuesday, we'll be addressing cravings, how to deal with family and friends that may be a little critical of you. And I'm sure she's going to cover that setting too. When you eat out with family or friends or coworkers, how do you deal with that? There are some psychological issues and stress points with that. But the more passion, the more motivation you have to eat healthy, what you'll find, which I have found when I've eaten out with colleagues, is when I get that at that high upper end restaurant where we have conferences and stuff, and I get that vegetable platter, usually they're trying to get stuff off of my plate. It looks so great. And the cooks are usually challenged to make that vegan or vegetarian pleased. And so they put their foot in it, and usually it's a very nice meal. But planning ahead is key. You're welcome. Planning ahead is key. And trying to look up the menu. You can, you have your phone now. You can look up anything. You're going to go to this restaurant, look up the menu before you go. So you're not staring at the menu trying to frustratingly figure out what you're going to do. See what they got already. If it doesn't look good for you, have your meal before you go. Do you know if you just eat an apple before a meal, you're so much less hungry for that for when you get down when it gets down to it. They've even shown 2 glasses of water before you eat tends to make your satiety level threshold go down. All right, next question. Thank you.
All right, Cedric, you're up next.
Hey, good evening. Thank you. Well, Dr. JT. Hey, my wife and I were just sort of in the early stages of exploring a more vegan-oriented lifestyle. We're by no means there. It's definitely going to be a journey for us. But as we start exploring and reading and learning and researching, we're often challenged by trying to figure out what are good alternatives to explore. And some of the basic things we have is like, we've always used a lot of olive oil, but now we're reading about, well, maybe grapeseed oil. And so be curious on your thoughts in terms of, is grapeseed oil a better alternative to olive oil, or are they equal, or what have you? And then some other things that we've been reading about and seeing about are things like coconut sugar as an alternative to regular sugar. So I'd like to, I could probably go on with 5 or 6 other items here, but would love to get your feedback or thoughts if you have any on the benefits of grapeseed oil versus olive oil, and if coconut sugar is something that you think is recommendable.
Thank you, Frat, for your question. Yeah, that's discussed a lot in the nutrition conferences, and those cardiologists that I illustrated that are plant-based, they uniformly will tell you less oil, the more healthy your blood vessels are. All oils have the same number of calories per tablespoon. I think it's like 120 or so. All of them, it doesn't matter whether it's olive, grapeseed, canola, sesame, avocado, they all give you the same calories, and they are all highly processed. And when you process oil, you take out a lot of the nutrients. But when you look at all of them, if you use actually extra virgin olive oil and you don't fry stuff in it, don't heat it so high to a high heat, it's actually the healthiest of all of them, because they have some monounsaturated fats in them and some other ingredients that are in olives that are good for your health. So I tell people, if we compare drizzling a little olive oil on your potato or bread or whatever, or your whole wheat bread, then fine. But, don't overdo it. You go to an Italian restaurant, what do you start out with? That white bread and tablespoons of olive oil. Before you've eaten your salad, you've had 200 calories. I mean, it's just, and then you put the ranch dressing on your salad, and before you get your entree, you've had 250 calories. So they add up, and oil is very dense. Think about it. I mean, oil, if you look at sugar, a gram, there's about 4 grams of sugar. If you take a teaspoon of sugar, the difference between that is 4 and 9 in terms of the grams of calories that you have. So oil is more than twice the calories of sugar. And oil is just liquid fat, by the way. And it doesn't matter, olive oil too, even though you may be getting some health nutrients from olive oil, it still is high, it's a dense caloric intake. And they've shown that oils also do a number on your blood vessels, whether it's olive oil or any oil. When they look at the stiffness and the flexibility of blood vessels, they found that even after a meal that contains olive oil, for a while it gets stiff. And stiffness is not good for your blood vessels. Now, regarding the coconut sugar, the things about sugars are, whether it's brown sugar, coconut sugar, monk fruit, whatever, agave, they all are simple carbs. And simple carbs cause an insulin spike. And an insulin spike gets you into that trouble where you can have type 2 diabetes, you can have increased cancer risks and other problems, dementia. is a vascular disease for the most part, Alzheimer's and some of the other major ones. So, so we have to be careful with sugar. You want to get your sugar from whole food. Like I do dates, and I don't use date powder or anything, although that's probably better than using granulated sugar. But I like dates because they don't have an aftertaste. So I take the pits out of them and I make a slurry in my NutriBullet with that and some almond milk, some unsweetened almond milk or soy. And if I ever feel like I got to have a little something sweet, I use date sugar. I've also used it in various recipes. There are a couple of sites, Forks Over Knives has an app that has some really good vegan meals. So does on YouTube, Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show. And I've made brownies, I've made that Starbucks lemon loaf cake, I've made some really great stuff, cookies, oatmeal cookies, and dates is usually what you use, but you use the whole thing. So when you get the fiber, you not only get the sweetness, but that slows down that absorption of the sugar, which makes it healthier. All right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, real quick. It's about 7:47 p.m. We are going to extend it just a little bit over. We have a couple of more people that would have their hands raised, and we do have several questions that are in the chat box. I'm glad that you guys are using the chat box. I see you guys talking back and forth and putting out really good information, but also know we're recording this and we will have a copy of it available on our website. Hopefully by next week. We have to get it edited a little bit, but it should be there. But we're going to go ahead and continue on. And Jackie, you have your hand raised. You have the floor.
So far, this has been a really, really great presentation. I appreciate this. I really do. My sister is totally vegan. So, I'm leaning towards being totally vegan. One, for health reasons. I just got over COVID. I was in the hospital, so I just got out of the hospital. I know that I really need to lead a more healthier lifestyle. That I definitely do. And so I am leaning towards being totally vegan. I just kind of don't know where to start. I think that's what my issue is I don't know where to start. There's just so much information out there, and I just don't know where to start. I mean, this has been a great presentation, but I just don't know how I need to start it.
Okay, that's why probably reviewing it, and there was a slide that I wanted you to start with, and that involved getting a journal and starting to document your journey. You're starting on a journey. I wanted you to list between now and next Tuesday the number of plant-based foods you eat on a daily basis. Just at the end of the day, put down how many plants you ate. You know, I talked about what the servings are. It doesn't have to be exact. But let's first see where you are with plant-based. And then next week, we'll move another step. But the other thing is you need to list the healthy foods you like. For me, I like avocado. That was on my list. I had banana on my list. I had brown rice on my list. I had apple. I had, and you try to make it in those 4 different quadrants. There's fruit, there's legumes like, beans and peas and soy. There's whole grains, there's quinoa, very healthy, has all the amino acids of any protein, of any, offers a similar kind of array that you get with meat. There's also many other grains. There's tons of grains out, millet and sorghum and amaranth, wonderful grains. Even, some of the non-processed wheat is good. And you can learn, you can learn how to cook these things right on YouTube. You can always find out how to cook them. So the start is taking the first step and not trying to look, I tell people it's like when you want to climb a mountain, there's a tendency sometimes to keep looking at the peak where you want to go, but don't look at the peak. Don't look at where your destiny. Take one step at a time. Make each day count. And if you average 2 to 3 plants a day, then less than 2 weeks have that as 5 or 6. And you'll move that needle. Because when you eat you're getting fiber, and that's going to edge off some of that bad stuff. It's about substitutions. You eat cornflakes, Kellogg's cornflakes with the sugar on it, then you could do better. You can choose a healthier cereal. I go to the health store and I get cereal that doesn't have, I'm always staring at these labels. You want less sugar, salt, and fat. If the salt amount is per serving is more than the calories per serving, it's too salty. The amount of salt per serving needs to be under the calories per serving. But you want to become a real staunch label reader and just take one step at a time. I'm saying, let's do it this way. Let me put it this way. In 2015, I made my list of 15 whole foods. At that time, I was averaging 3 to 4 servings of plant-based foods a day. By 6 months, I was averaging 10. And now I average 12 to 14 servings a day. I get full. Fiber makes you full. When you eat that fast food or highly oiled food, that makes you want to eat more and more. And they know that. That's what the food engineers do. They try to drive you towards eating more because you buy more when you eat more. You eat more, you buy more. But when you eat food that is whole, you get more fiber, you get full faster. And don't be afraid of potato. People say, oh, the carbs and all that. They don't know what they're talking about. The potato becomes a problem when you put the cheese on it, the bacon bits, and the sour cream. That's when it becomes a problem. How about some marinara sauce or some other kind of healthy sauce you put on the potato? You can get a lot of ideas off of those sources I gave you. So where do you start? You start now. That's when you start. But you start with some of the things I just mentioned. Make a list of those foods that you like that are whole. You can find them. I have a list I'm posting on my website about 100 different foods. Everybody has their own tastes. Find out what your tastes are. Get those foods. Have them available. If you're hungry at night and you want to eat some cookies or something, you ask yourself, are you hungry enough to eat an apple? And if you say, yeah, then eat an apple. But it's got to be there. And it won't take long. We're going to talk about cravings next time. Dr. Gupta is going to talk about cravings. I want to move on, though. I know we got other questions, but thank you for your question. I hope you'll just stick with this program. We're going to give you tips along the way. And we do plan on, after the 4 weeks, to have a check-in once a month to keep this drive going for people interested. Okay? All right.
Can I also say this, Dr. Thompson and Chanel? There's a lot of great people on here. Find an accountability partner.
I wrote that down.
You can take this journey on with you. That's tremendous. So don't think you're by yourself on this journey. Yeah, and it's also okay to have someone outside your household too. So, but finding that accountability partner.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Thanks, Dr. J. The number of people that signed up, I said I wanted them to sign up with somebody else for that purpose, because it helps to have someone you can share with. The other thing is this venues is a support venue for you. And as you go through your journey, that's another reason why I want you to journal, because when it comes to next Tuesday, you'll forget some of the things that came up. But if you have it in your journal, you'll be able to look and bring it up and share this, because other people go through the same thing. I'm also on Clubhouse every Sunday at 11 a.m. with Dr. Gupta. And if you don't know, Clubhouse is an app you can download to your phone. It's free. But she has a plant-based transition. She has a vegan transition hour every Sunday at 11 a.m. I know that's church for a number of people. I get my church in at 8 a.m. But just that's another support source. All right, next.
Okay. All right, Thelma.
Hi. I really enjoyed your presentation, Dr. Thompson. He's been helping me a lot, and I appreciate it. Now, I had one question. Now, I've been using the air fryer, like I told you last visit. Now, you said about the olive oil. Now, what about the olive oil in the sprays? Because I've been using that in my air fryer. I'll spray that. Is that a good idea, or should I kind of roast it or something? Roast the vegetable instead of sauteing them?
Yeah, when you spray it, you're using usually a little less than when you dump and you put it in a pot and saute and things like that. So less is more. When you put it in an air fryer, usually we're talking about high heat, over 300. And the nutritional aspect of that sprayed olive oil plummets when you heat it at those high temperatures. Yes, it gives us that crispy texture, and I used to love that crispy texture too. I found I can live without it. But yeah, between the fact that you're still getting this dense, highly processed, high caloric food, even though it has more nutrients than the other oils, but then you're putting it at high heat temperature. It has a very low smoke point. So that means it oxidizes the fat and it becomes more of a cardiac risk. So when you compare this to what you might have done before, like a fried chicken, deep fried chicken, you're doing great with what you're doing. But what you want to do is don't get stuck in that level and realize that you can do better. But you don't have to stress over it, okay?
Okay.
All right.
All right. So
Thank
that was the end of the hands up. So do you want to dive into some of these questions real quick, or how do you want to go?
Yes, people want to get their questions. Let's go through as many as we can as somebody said. I don't care if we go over about by 10 or 15 minutes. People don't have to feel obligated to stay on.
Okay.
If they want to hear some of the answer to these questions, they can stay on, or they can look at the recording. But I'll stay an extra 15 minutes because one thing I wanted with this is for people to feel that they got their questions answered.
Okay. Well, this will be the last one of the raised hands. I have Keisha. She wants to say something. Keisha, unmute yourself.
I did. Hi, everybody.
Mhm.
So, Dr. Thompson, question. Is there a resource or any information out there that once an individual embarks upon the transitioning process, I found that it was very challenging to find out what the shelf life is of some of these meals that you prepare? Is there a resource that you utilize that kind of gives us the shelf life of certain things, like once you cook your chickpeas, or how long the shelf life or the refrigerator life is for rice cauliflower if you're using it for mash and you want to have leftovers the next day? I've had challenges finding that, but is it something that you have to just kind of figure out on your own, or are there resources out there that's geared towards plant-based?
Thanks. That's a wonderful question too. And off the top of my head, I don't know of that. I haven't directly searched for that, but it may be out there as to how long. But I know there's variables. There's variables of where you have something in the refrigerator. If you have it on the door, or if you have it in the back, or then there's the temperature of your refrigerator, and then there's the container it's in. So there are a lot of different variables to how long that food's going to be preserved. But there's a general rule of thumb I've heard when I've listened to other nutrition experts, and that is that if you're going to keep it in the refrigerator, don't go past about 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
For most things. There may be exceptions. I'm thinking about beans and veggies, those kind of veggies that you've cooked. What I'll do, because I do batch cooking on weekends, because I don't have time during the weekdays. And I'll go 5, 6, sometimes 7 days with my beans in the fridge, but I make sure they're kept really tight and cool. But when I know it's going to be more than 5 or 6 days, what you do is get some little small containers and freeze them. You extend that time significantly when you freeze them, especially things like beans. There are certain things when you freeze, it kind of doesn't go so well, and you'll figure that out. But when it comes to greens, you can freeze greens. It's just that you can't freeze them without cooking them. You have to either flash boil them, or they need to be cooked before you freeze them. Otherwise, with the way ice crystallizes and everything, it changes the whole texture. But sometimes I'll cook a big batch of greens, kale, and I'll freeze some because I got to go out of town for a week. But I know better than to freeze fresh kale, because then that's not going to work.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to dig into some of these questions. I'm going to start here. Kimberly Allen Brown wants to know, is stevia a better choice of sugar? I thought monk fruit was okay, but sounds like it's not.
Okay, stevia is from a plant, of course. It's not an animal product, so that's good. The thing about it is that when you always say relative to what? So stevia relative to granulated sugar, brown sugar, honey is probably better. Any sugar can give you an insulin spike, any simple sugar. So even if it's stevia, you don't want to use too much and you don't want to use it too often, because it's going to give you a bit of an insulin spike. It will give you, but when you compare it, you always say relative to what? Relative to high fructose corn syrup, relative to many of the other sugars, like I said, brown sugar, white sugar. you're better off in terms of health with stevia. But say relative to dates, a whole date to sweeten something, or even blackstrap molasses, believe it or not, it has a lot of nutrition in it, and most people can't tolerate it. It's still an issue. Okay.
Okay. Next question is from Brian Jackson. Hey, Brian. He's family, so just to let you know that. What types of nuts should we stay away from?
BJ is family.
Yes, he is.
Wow, what a small world.
Sometimes the family nuts. Anyway,
he's one of my daily buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so what kind of nuts? Well, there is a hierarchy of nuts, and if you want to get more detail on this, look up Nuts and Dr. Michael Greger on nutritionfacts.org YouTube or podcasts. He goes off about nuts. And so from what I've learned about it, some of the healthiest nuts are the walnuts, the raw walnuts and raw almonds, and pistachios. I think they're at the hierarchy. Down at the low end are nuts like the cashews. Cashews have a lot of fat, but they make great dressings. And when I make a dressing, I take some raw cashews, throw it in there with some with a little garlic and with some balsamic vinegar, and you got your own dressing. That's what I will smuggle in. I'll smuggle in my own dressings so I can put them on salads instead of what they have to offer, which usually has oils in it. Vinegar is okay. Anyway, yeah, so the higher end healthier nuts, walnuts have a lot more omega-3 in them, and they have less saturated fat. All nuts have some saturated fat. They just don't have nearly as much as meat and eggs. So you can, if you're trying to lose weight, you want to really go low on the nuts. If you've already knows you have high cardiac risk, Dr. Esselstyn will tell you, really don't do the nuts because you want to really lower that dense fat content. On the other hand, if not, the walnuts tend to be healthier, and next to that, I think the almonds and the pistachios and pecans. But you know, they get messed up when they put the salt on them, the sugar on them, the chocolate on them. You know, be careful of that. The caramel on them. That means it's 3 steps backwards.
Right.
Dr. Barnard says a handful of nuts, no more than, if you put them in your palm, they shouldn't go past that first knuckle, and that's the amount in a day that you should consume. Because you know we can go to town on some nuts.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's true.
Thank you,
All
Dr.
right.
JT and Chanel. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right. Sherry Washington has asked, do you have any suggested proteins outside of mushrooms and nuts? I find that I'm usually hungry after eating a meal of veggies.
Thank you for your question, Sherry. That's a common problem when you don't have as balanced a plant-based meal as you should. And the protein comes from all plants. First of all plants have protein. All of them have all the essential proteins. There's a guy named Chris Gardner. If you Google Dr. Chris Gardner and plant proteins, you'll see some wonderful presentations. And he'll say to you, he studied this, that all plants have protein. But some plants have more protein than others. And so you'll get more protein when you have more of that brown rice or whole grains. You'll get more protein that they have all the amino acids you need. Quinoa. And amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So quinoa, millet, all those. If you eat enough whole grains, you're going to get full. If you eat enough beans, I know people sometimes, well, you know, my stomach gets upset or I get gassy and all that. That's because your microbiome is messed up. You should be able to tolerate beans unless you're allergic to them. As an allergist, I have to say that. On the other hand, most people just have goofed up guts, and that's why they can't handle them, because they're not having enough fiber in their meal. But you will be more full when you have more beans or peas or soy like tofu or tempeh and more grains. So put a little more emphasis on that. I get full because I load up the bowl with the veggies and the brown rice. And I'm full. Hours later, I'm still full. I might want an apple or something a little later, but I'm not trying to forage. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. All right, the next question is from Cedric Irving. What is your opinion on nutritional yeast and sea moss?
sea moss, I don't have much of an opinion. I can see there may be some health benefits to it, but I always look at these things like, can I live without it? Does the benefit outweigh any risk? And the thing about it is, with a lot of these, the risks haven't been studied intensely, although some of them have been used for a long time. And if it's something that's been used for centuries or decades, then it's probably okay. On the other hand, I think I can get all the nutrients I need from eating whole foods. And what was the other one? There was what was the other? It was sea moss, and there was one more Cedric said.
Nutritional yeast.
Nutritional yeast, right? Nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is a great substitute for that cheesy flavor. So some of y'all are gonna miss that cheese because cheese is kind of addictive. And that's the last thing some people can let go, that cheese. They'll let go of that glass of milk, sour cream, but they won't want to let go of that cheese. And a lot of the vegan cheeses are loaded with coconut oil and palm oil, so you got to be careful with those. But nutritional yeast is a protein. And so you're not going to get a lot of calories at that, and you're going to get more protein, and you're going to get that cheesy flavor. My brother, my youngest brother, carries a bottle of nutritional yeast with him when he goes to any restaurant because he likes the flavor of cheese. And it also has B12, not all of them. You should check the label. But that's also a nice source of B12 because people that eat plant-based don't get as much B12. And so you do want to have, there aren't many supplements, and Dr. Miller, I'm not going to steal her thunder. She's going to go through this in a few weeks, the supplements we should be concerned about. But she'll be telling us more about B12 and other supplements. But nutritional yeast does, a lot of nutritional yeast has B12 in it. It's protein-based. Go for it.
Okay. Just wanted to remind you guys again that on next week, the 23rd, you have the 30th for Dr. Gupta. The 23rd, we're going to be talking about conquering cravings with Dr. R. Gupta. So please make sure that you get back on the Zoom and join us next week as well. We do have a few more questions that we're going to address. And then if you need any more information, please feel free to reach out to one of us, and we will be sending out the link to everything once we get it edited. So I'm going to go over these few more questions here, and we'll go from there. So JS wanted to know, I heard even bananas don't have the potassium we believe to have. So can you please give the order of fruits and veg to be consumed?
Well, realize that when you eat a balanced plant-based meal, you're going to get loads of potassium. So yeah, bananas don't have nearly the amount of potassium they're cracked up to have. You know, oranges have some potassium in them. Potatoes, a potato has a lot of potassium in it. Green leafy vegetables have potassium in it. The balance of potassium versus sodium is way more towards potassium in a lot of green leafy vegetables. So if you eat a salad or some greens each day, if you eat other fruit too, orange and kiwi and food like that, you're going to get plenty of potassium. But nothing wrong with bananas. Now, if you're already a diabetic or pre-diabetic, yeah, you do have to be careful because you already have insulin resistance. So that's why you have to watch out for those high glycemic foods like grapes and ripe bananas and things like that if you're already insulin resistant. But if you're not, and you're hitting this journey early before any of that, where you have good numbers and you just want to stay healthy, nothing wrong with eating a banana. They've given it to people that have controlled diabetes and found that because of the nutrients in it, in addition to some potassium, the sugar is slowly absorbed. And if you're eating meals, other parts of your meal has fiber, you're eating it with brown rice, or you're eating it with oatmeal in the morning, oatmeal's loaded with fiber. Not that instant oats, talking about old-fashioned or steel cut or oat groats. Those are the ones that slows down that sugar absorption, slows down absorption of oils, sweeps out some of the other toxins. There's something called the extra meal effect you get. When that happens, the next meal, you tolerate you metabolize even better by eating healthy meals preceding it. So it's really a wonderful thing. All right.
Michelle Baldridge wants to know, how can I make sure I'm getting enough protein in a plant-based diet?
Yeah, and I don't think this can be repeated enough. All plants have protein because all plants have amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks of protein. Some plants have more protein than others. Some people that jump right into the pool with this and eat raw and just eat salads every day, some of them are kind of set up because a few weeks later, they're feeling hungry. They go back to their old ways because they feel like they don't have energy because they didn't have a balanced plate. They just ate salads, and although there's protein in salads, there might be not enough protein if you're very physically active. So the beans, the grains, the whole grains, that is, not the highly refined or processed grains, the whole grains like quinoa, brown rice, even corn, get the non-GMO corn, the millet, the sorghum, the teff, the amaranth. You're gonna get full, you're gonna have plenty of protein. And any beans you pick, but especially those black beans and those chickpeas, you know, those lentils, teeming with nutrition, teeming with fiber, teeming with protein. Tofu, tempeh, that's a source of protein.
Okay. All right, we're coming to the end of our questions. Here's another one from Edith Fabi. What about milk from animals, goat's milk and sheep's milk for feta cheese?
Yeah, we try to get that those animal milks in, but they're really not very healthy for you because those milks are really so that those animals can grow big and strong. You know, the cow's milk, so you can be 300 or 400 pounds, you know, within a few months. Do we want to be 300 or 400 pounds? And yeah, we're drinking 2% with less fat in it, but you still have that lactose sugar. And 70% of us, probably 75% of people of color, don't handle that lactose too well. That's telling you something right there. And you're actually going backwards with goat milk. Goat milk is not so healthy either. Dr. Neil Barnard on PCRM.org. Look up, if you go on YouTube, put in Barnard, put in milk, you'll come up with a handful of presentations. He recently talked about that and really broke down in more detail why cow's milk and goat's milk are not healthy milks to consume. They're really meant for those species, and they offer a little too much fat. And even if you take the fat off them, you still have the animal protein, which as far as cow's milk can increase prostate cancer. And there's some evidence that it may increase your risk too for endometrial and breast cancer. So I think the animal products we should try to avoid.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're getting down to the final two questions that I have for now. Okay, Cedric wants to know, should I be concerned about the level of sugar contained in fruit?
Yeah, and as I said, when you talk about whole fruit that you got from produce, not the fruit that maybe is out of a can or bottle that might have added sugar, you're not going to go wrong unless, because, you know, talk with your doctor, as we've said, I'm not advising anybody personally on what they can eat. There are limitations depending on where you are in your health spectrum. If you're already pre-diabetic or have insulin resistance, some of these fruit can get to you because they will cause an insulin spike, even though they have complex sugars. On the other hand, if you're not dealing with that already, eat any fruit you want, grapes, bananas, eat plenty of fruit. If you eat more fruit and don't eat the processed pastries and donuts and candies that when you go to the checkout counter, all that rainbow of processed candy there to eat, you know, Pixies coming up and chocolate from you know, for Valentine's. If you don't eat those, you allow your taste buds to come down to earth and you start enjoying fruit again. When I used to eat a row of Chip Ahoys and, you know, a whole layer of those Pixies, I didn't want fruit because my taste buds were out of this world and my pleasure center was just taken over by the sugar. But when you eat whole food, plant-based, and you get that processed sugar out of your life, it comes back down to earth and you start enjoying fruit. I love fruit. I can't wait to eat fruit. Kiwi, you know, pomegranate, whatever's in season. I'll get the frozen stuff that's out of season because when they freeze it, it still maintains most of the nutrition. They freeze it right off the vine. So nothing wrong with frozen fruit, but read that label. Make sure they're not adding stuff to it.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Dr. Johnson wants to know, Can you speak to the problems with artificial sweeteners and zero-calorie drinks?
Yeah, they're really not all they're cracked up to be. Yes, you don't get calories, but it's 3 steps backwards with a lot of these artificial sweeteners like NutraSweet and Splenda. Aspartame is what NutraSweet is. Saccharin. There's a lot of evidence now that shows that they're not good for the microbiome, that flora in your gut that you want to keep healthy, that interacts with all these other body systems. And some of them just make you eat more carbs, like the NutraSweet. Yeah, you have the soda with the NutraSweet. You don't get calories, but you make up for them because of what it does to your taste buds. It's more syrupy, more sugary, and you end up making up for it by eating other simple carbs. That's why a lot of people don't really lose weight while they're drinking a lot of diet sodas and diet drinks and zero-calorie stuff that has artificial sweeteners in it. So generally speaking, they're not very healthy and they don't often get you where you want to go.
Okay. All right. This is the last question, and this is from Ken. Is it better to eat high glycemic fruits and veggies at night so they are metabolized more slowly during sleep?
Well, high glycemic means that they will get into your blood flow very fast. So that's not good at night. Dr. Barnard will say eating a banana would be okay if you just want something sweet. For me, I'll do some unsweetened applesauce. But you don't want to eat a lot before you go to bed because you want to give your gut a rest, just like you need a rest. Your gut needs a rest. So try not to eat something right before bedtime or within 2 hours. It's going to put your gut to work because you don't often sleep as well. The other thing is that when you eat a highly glycemic food, whether it's fruit or anything else, you cause your insulin to go up. And then in the middle of the night, the insulin has overshot, bringing down your glucose. So you get up to use a washroom or something and you want to eat a cookie. You want to take a slice of pie. You got this munchies in the middle of the night because your insulin overdid it because of that snack, that sugary snack you had before, after dinner, before bed. So even if it's fruit, be careful with that. It'd probably be better for a low glycemic fruit instead of high like grapes or very ripe banana. On the other hand, it's not an exact science. If people do well for it, they sleep with it, and they're not bothered already by insulin resistance, then, that's probably okay. It's better than an ice cream shake. It's better than a glazed donut. So we're talking again about relative things here.
Okay. All right. So that's the end of the questions and the answers. Didn't you all enjoy this evening? This evening was amazing. I see all of you all clapping. I'm clapping with you guys. It was awesome. And guess what? We're going to do this again next week and all the way to February the 6th. And you know what? I need an accountability partner. So let's do this together. Let me know. I'll be your partner. Jackie, I'm available. So, just reach out. We're going to do this all together as a team. We're going to do this because we want to be healthy. We want to live, right?
Amen.
But we don't want to live just eating. We want to live a good, wholesome, healthy life. So I'm going to let Dr. Johnson give some final remarks, and we're going to let you go and get you a glass of cold water for the evening. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chanel, for giving me that executive privilege. And I want to remind everybody, we really want to expand what we're doing here. This is just the beginning, and we want to do more, not only online, but in person. So please feel free if you think this is worthwhile. We're not charging anything. We're not selling anything, but we are a 501c3 not-for-profit. So please donate whatever you can on our website, healthylivingwithavision.org. And I want to close out with prayer. We are a spiritual people. My board is really special. I love them all. We wouldn't be able to do this without the leadership of Dr. Thompson and Chanel and the other people on our board that I'm going to miss somebody. I just know Diane Powell,
Tony, LaShawn, Al, they're all on here.
They're all on our board.
Dr. Wheeler is here.
Dr. Wheeler.
Yes.
All of them serve on our board of
Keisha.
directors. And Keisha, who is, man, she's been the backbones of our social media and all. So I just want to end this with a little bit of prayer to get us started on the week and get us started on our assignment with that Dr. Thompson has sent us upon. So just kind of bow your heads or close your eyes, whatever you do. Just a moment of silence. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this information. Thank you, Lord, for allowing us and giving us the knowledge to embark and take advantage of the plant-based enriched nutrition that you have already provided for us, Lord, to give us strength to honor your temple and to live our best life in thy grace and in thy will. In Jesus' name, as we go forward, amen.
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 As I always
Good
like
prayer.
to end this,
And
encourage
Thank you.
everyone to be well, to see well, and be blessed. I'm going to get that eye stuff in here too. So thank everybody for joining.
Amen.
Thank you. See you next week, 7 o'clock.
And also tell your friends.
Tell your friends,
everybody
they missing out on some
and
good
family, everybody,
stuff.
please
All
just
right.
Invite them all
bring
in, please.
some
Thank you,
accountability
guys.
partners.
Thank you,
invite at
Dr.
least 2 other people.
James.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Talk to
You're
you.
welcome.
thank you all.
No
Good
problem.
job, JT.
Cravings next week, y'all. We're talking cravings and social interaction, family interaction. So be there next week. We're going to bring it.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. We look forward to it.
Bye, Chanel.
Bye, Brian. Love you.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Excellent kickoff.
Super
Thank you,
duper.
Dr.
Super.
Johnson.
Oh, you're
JT.
welcome. You're welcome.
Good
Thanks,
work.
Jean.
Good work.
Jean,
Good work.
my sister, Jean.
You guys have a great and a blessed week. Talk
You
with
too,
soon.
Crystal.
Thanks for
Hey,
joining.
friends.
All right, everybody be a blessing this week
Right.
to somebody.
Amen.
Man.
Amen.
As folks clear out, we want to use this platform to do a little, once the last person's cleared out, to do a little forensics.
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay.
We probably have to reach back out to Dr. Johnson, but we'll wait for a few moments here.
Oh, I didn't
Should I
realize
stop
he had
recording? You want me to stop recording?
Yeah, please do.
Mm-hmm.